On the Black Isle, in the Scottish Highlands, not an island but a peninsula, lies Rosemarkie. It was here that an excavation was undertaken by a commercial archaeology company in 2020 to 2021, in advance of a new housing development. Here, on the western edge of site, a remarkable discovery was made on one of the last days of the dig. While clearing away soil, a metallic noise was heard as shovel met metal. The archaeologists stopped and started to carefully explore what they had encountered. On revealing the uppermost metal objects along with organics, they knew they had unearthed something very special. Further examination was halted, and instead the archaeologists lifted the entire pit the objects were contained in as one block of soil, preserving the artifacts within exactly as they were. It was after the excavation had been completed that GUARD Archaeology were brought in for the post-excavation analysis. Once transported to the Finds Lab in Glasgow, the block was CT scanned to give a better understanding of what else was contained within the block of soil. This revealed 9 bronze artifacts in total, 6 bracelets, a cup-ended ornament, a complete ringed ornament, and a fragment of a second ringed ornament. A micro-excavation was then undertaken by GUARD archaeologists in laboratory conditions. Photogrammetry was used extensively throughout to document the excavation, alongside physical sketches. A grid system was employed to keep track of where the artifacts were positioned and where samples were taken from. All equipment was clean and at hand. Deionized water was used throughout to keep the metal artifacts and the organic materials damp to aid with preservation. And refrigerated storage was prepared for the excavated artifacts. The plastic containing the block was cut back to allow better access, the surrounding soil cleaned and levelled, ready to begin. Beginning with the topmost artifact, the surrounding soil was slowly removed, revealing each artifact in turn. The complete penannular ringed ornament was first, followed by the fragment, then 2 bracelets together to preserve the encircling organics. Next was a single bracelet free from entanglements with the others. And finally, the last 3 bracelets, along with the cup-ended ornament, were removed in a mini block lift due to a clump of organics that held these artifacts together. As the excavation progressed, more and more organic material became evident. 2 different types were encountered. One had a long, grass-like structure that was concentrated around the metal and followed the curves of the artifacts, while the other, a more spiky-looking plant, was concentrated in the center of the hoard from top to bottom. Any organic material adhering to the artifacts was left in place for further investigation. Both the bronze artifacts and the organics were sent to specialists for further study. So what were they able to tell us? Conservator Will Murray of the Scottish Conservation Studio was the first to look at the artifacts and was able to stabilise the metal while preserving the attached organics. The clump that held these lower artifacts in place was slowly and carefully picked through, and he was able to reveal a knot tied onto the cup-ended ornament, which explains why the lower bracelets could not be lifted individually. The knot was then looked at by textile specialist Dr. Susanna Harris of the University of Glasgow, who was able to tell us that the material used was in pristine condition when tied and was a simple overhand knot. It was then looked at by archaeobotanist Dr. Susan Ramsey, who was able to tell us that it was tree bast, the inner bark of a tree, probably ash. A sample of this was radiocarbon dated to 894 to 794 BC, from the very tail end of the Bronze Age. She was also able to identify the spiky plant material as bracken stems and fronds, which had been used as packing material within the pit. The bronze artifacts were next delivered to Dr. Matt Knight and his team at the National Museum Scotland. Their key findings were that this is the most complicated and complete example of a penannular ringed ornament currently known in Scotland. It is too small to fit over a human head and shows no signs of being distorted to fit one. They are confident that the same craftsperson made both the complete and fragmentary ringed ornaments. 3 of the penannular bar bracelets showed signs of distortion showing repeated use. No 2 bracelets in this hoard are alike, suggesting they were sourced from multiple locations or multiple people. One in particular is the heaviest bronze penannular bar bracelet known in Scotland. The cup-ended ornament is only the second bronze example in Scotland and was cast as an entire object, as can be seen in this X-ray. No seams or joins are visible. There is an inconsistent organic covering that shows up on all the objects, thought to be degraded skin or leather used to wrap the artifacts. To understand why this hoard was buried, we need to understand its context. The excavation revealed 7 Bronze Age roundhouses, and the hoard was buried on the outskirts of the settlement. This was a long-lived one, lasting more than 6 centuries from the mid-15th century BC to the turn of the 8th century BC, when it ceased to be used. From one of the roundhouses, radiocarbon dated to 1125 to 909 BC, slightly earlier than the hoard, were recovered fragments of crucibles and clay moulds for metalworking. These included moulds for a possible sword, sickle, and spearheads. The pit that the artifacts were deposited in was a gentle scoop of a pit, incredibly shallow at just 10 centimeters deep, just deep enough to snugly fit the items and no more, with the cup-ended ornament at the base, the other bracelets stacked on top, the complete ringed ornament placed where the pit was at its widest, encircling the entire hoard that lay below before being covered. These artifacts were placed into the small pit with sincere efforts made to protect the artifacts by wrapping, binding, and packaging. Micro-excavations of dryland hoards such as this and the hoard from Carnoustie are very rare. There is an abundance of knowledge that would have been lost if the archaeologists had solely concentrated on the exciting metal artifacts and paid no attention to the organics. What was discovered is that this unique and precious hoard was deposited with care and attention paid to every detail by a late Bronze Age community at Rosemarkie. From the gathering of intricate artifacts from probable different sources for deposition, to binding them together with pristine tree bast, to packing it with bracken, wrapping it in leather, and finally depositing their valuable items on the edge of their settlement that was nearing the end of its days.